With the S&P 500 briefly hitting a record at the $7,000 mark and the Federal Reserve holding interest rates steady, the next biggest news is that the richest man on earth may be building his own private army of robots. And we're going to talk about what the impact will be of these humanoid robots. How will they impact healthcare? How will they impact the military? How will they impact home care? How will they impact factory workers? And how does this all align with AI? We're going to talk about all of it. So obviously the big news is that Tesla is repurposing one of its factories. This is in Fremont. And they are ending the production of the Model X and the Model S models. The Model X was a more luxury SUV. The Model S was a luxury sedan. So Tesla is ending those models. They have by far not been as popular as the Model 3 and the Model Y. And Tesla will repurpose the factory with plans to try and make 1 million humanoid robots. Some of you may have seen the footage of these. This will be the third generation that Tesla believes will be more mass marketable. Obviously, this raises many questions about how these will be used and will they replace jobs. Now let's tackle jobs at first. I think the concern for jobs is always overblown. The economy is very dynamic. The economy cannot be fully predicted or controlled by any one entity. So when there are job losses in one sector, there are always opportunities for job losses in another sector. And case in point, if you were to say, let's not do any cars, if you were to say, let's not manufacture any cars, if you thought Henry Ford was out of his mind and you took the side of, hey, we don't want to lose all the jobs we don't want to have all the job losses for all the buggy makers and everyone that's changing horseshoes out and people that are making saddles. We have to protect all these industries. That could have been a terrible mistake. And as we know, the jobs migrated, they morphed, and there were new jobs that opened in car manufacturing. That's just one example. This example happens across many industries over the centuries. There is always going to be some new industry that pops up, but at the same time, there's always going to be some loud voices that are trying to more or less have a grift over workers of a particular industry that are losing their jobs, whether they're after votes or donations. There's always going to be some sort of grift that says this new innovation must be stopped. I don't think that's the right approach, and I think history dictates that there will always be new jobs that crop up. And so the question is, what new jobs could these humanoid robots take over? Now, we'll take one of the biggest concerns first, and that's, could they be militarized? And I think it's possible that they could be militarized, but frankly, the US military has, I'm sure, robotics that we don't even know about, that are top secret, that we're privy to, and they're very purpose-built robots. So think about a drone. That's a purpose-built robot, a flying robot in that case. And what America didn't do is say, well, let's get a humanoid robot and plop them into a fighter jet and have them control a fighter jet the way a human would, because the controls of a fighter jet were designed around how humans operate. And if you take the human out, the physical human out of actually sitting in a plane, well, then you don't need to have all the controls in the same place in that plane. Of course, they could be remote, but that can also change the form factor of the plane, and that's how we got drones. So I think there are already wide applications for very specialty robots. So the dream of a humanoid robot, I think, is a bit of an imperfect dream, because it's just trying to replicate the human form when in many cases the human form may not be necessary. Think about common household objects that have been automated. Dishwashers, right? That automated dishwashing. We didn't need a humanoid robot to stand in front of a sink and wash dishes the way a human would. We're able to design a purpose-built robot that can clean dishes in a more efficient manner. And this is the same thing with lawnmowers. There's even an autonomous snowblower that's now available for $5,000, right? And just like the Roombas or the lawnmowers and now the snowblowers, they don't look like your typical old school forms where there's a handlebar that has the controls and someone can grab it and walk along, and they'd have a robot walk along. That's not necessary. They've been redesigned. However, they could be good interim choices if the cost gets low enough. And we'll take a home, for example. If you have all the old versions of everything that I'm talking about, like a push lawnmower and a push snowblower, and say you don't even have a dishwasher and you're cleaning everything by hand in the sink, well, then perhaps these robots, if they get cheap enough, that could be a good way to bridge the gap. Instead of buying multiple $1,000 instances of all these highly specialized robots, you could have one humanoid robot that would be able to do all these things the way a human would. So it's a way to bridge the gap, but that's if the cost can get low enough. And I'm sure that's where many people are dubious. But before Elon Musk is decried for just creating something that will only be used by the wealthy, I have to remind you that his original strategy for Tesla was to create the Model S, which was an electric supercar, have that be the proof of concept, have all the highly, curious people with a lot of money buy in first, and give Tesla a financial windfall to then try and perfect it and make a more affordable mass market version, which eventually became the Model 3, one of the best-selling Tesla models. And as I mentioned, the Model S is now going out of production. And I think that it is reasonable to assume that Elon may go with the same approach. So initially, sure, commentators may be right to say, oh, well, this is just going to be some sort of assistant for the wealthy. And that's maybe how it will start. But I think it could then be used as a proof of concept. The software could be perfected. And as soon as the software is perfected, then it's a matter of just getting the robot, in this case, a metal-shaped human, getting the cost of that down enough. And of course, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of subscription model. As many of you know, Tesla has now moved to a subscription model for its full self-driving. So I don't think this is a for the wealthy only item. I think it can have a place to fit into a home and use some of the old school robots that aren't purpose built, because I think most homes currently have the old school version, right? I think I've only probably seen an automatic lawnmower in one or two cases and driving around various neighborhoods over the year. And keep in mind, they can also do very basic jobs. And while I think we're far off in terms of the healthcare industry, far off from having a robot perform surgery, like a humanoid robot actually performing the surgery, I think we're a lot closer to having a humanoid robot go around and empty bedpans, perhaps. Because if you think about it, creating a specialty robot to change bedpans is a lot harder. If you wanted to try and industrialize that process, you'd probably have to do massive redesigns of hospitals. So again, this would be a situation for the robot to be kind of retrofit into the scenario and retrofit into situations where humans used to be, and perhaps getting a specialty purpose-driven robot, it will either be too expensive or have just not been conceived of at that point. And so the final point I'm going to make is that of privacy. So as far as the argument that jobs are going to be lost forever, I don't think that's warranted. As far as the argument that this is only going to be for the wealthy, I don't think history proves that out either. But the one argument that is proved out by history is that of privacy. And what I have seen when it comes to technology, the cheaper items are cheaper for a reason. And the cost that they come at is privacy. And take, for example, Vizio TVs, and even more well-known brands of TVs. Most of these TVs have software in them. When they are connected to the internet, they essentially offer a live stream of what you are watching to the TV manufacturers, and they in turn sell that to marketing companies. They take pictures every few milliseconds. That is a lot of pictures. That's why I'm saying it's effectively a live stream. So if you buy a TV and you say, oh, wow, I can't believe this TV, it's 65 inches, it's only $100. But then there's another TV that's $2,000 and it's also 65 inches, and you wonder why that is. And it's not because, perhaps the technology is a little bit better, but it's really not because the technology is so far and above superior than the $100 TV. It's because the company has to make their money a different way. If they're not going to make it off of you from selling what you watch to marketing companies, then they have to make their money up front because they know they're not going to have that recurring revenue. So while the great technology, for the most part, is available to people that can't afford the flashiest model, they will have to pay, and they'll have to pay in terms of their privacy. We see this also with the various home assistants or the smart speakers. You can get some very cheap smart speakers, you can get some more expensive smart speakers, and there's often a privacy trade-off there. And I think the idea of a humanoid robot will not be any different. So while it may be very expensive to start, there will quickly be more affordable ones, and I think there will be many applications that that no one, including me, has currently dreamed of. And those applications of the humanoid robot will make quality of life better for many, many people. There will most likely be a cost of privacy for the people that buy the lowest end models. So I think that's something just worth noting. So ask yourself, go ahead, post in the comment, are you in favor of having humanoid robots, or would you or is it your wish that there are no humanoid robots at all? Or would you only want them in certain applications, maybe in a healthcare application, maybe in a factory application? Would you want them in your house with you? Would you want them taking care of your loved one in their house? Those are questions that you'll have to ask yourself. Go ahead, drop a comment with your thoughts. Have a good night.